Welcome, TBF Chairman, Master Gao Chun-Su and Master Lian Sung, the Education Director, Master Lian He, Master Lian Dong, Master Lian Zhe, Master Lian Yue, Master Lian Jia, from all 7 departments of TBF. Welcome to all Dharma propagators. Auspicious greetings to everyone. Tonight's topic is about necessary mindsets and methods to learn Buddhism, and the teacher is Master LianYi from Malaysia's chapter, Zhi Tang. It's necessary to have the right mindsets and methods to learn Buddhism so that we'll walk on the correct path, and we look forward to Master's teachings. Please let the Master hear our warmest applause. Let's respectfully invite Master LianYi to carry out this class for us. First of all, let's pay homage and thank our root guru, Living Buddha Lian Sheng, and the lineage gurus of True Buddha School, and all Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Dharma protectors of the altar. Respected Chairman, Master Cheng-Chu, Director of the Supervision Department, Master Lian Sung, Education Department Director, Master Lian He, Public Relations Department, Master Lian Jia, Master Lian Yue from the Publicity Department, and all Dharma propagators, interpreters, all disciples, good evening. Today's class is for prospective candidates going for the selection examination, and the topic is necessary mindsets and methods to learn Buddhism. So first of all, let's talk about the necessary attitudes or mindsets. So there are 4 aspects. The first is reverence, secondly, compassion, third, bodhicitta, fourth, humility. So there's a saying, Buddha Dharma is sought within reverence. So one needs to be first deeply respectful toward Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, and only then will this give rise to faith in Dharma. So when there is reverence, it will lead to the generation of faith in Dharma. In the sutras, it's often said, we must first have reverence and follow all the teachings of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, and they all have their principles and inner meaning. So reverence can give rise to pure faith, especially in the cultivation of esoteric or tantric Buddhism. When you're very reverent, it will give rise to faith. This faith is a pure kind of faith. I remember there's this story. There was an old monk, and he gave a discourse to his students. So halfway, a fly flew over, and the monk smacked the fly to death. And his disciples were thinking to themselves, why is the teacher so not compassionate? Doesn't Buddhism talk about not killing? So some disciples thought this way, but other disciples had other kinds of thinking. They thought if they were that fly, it would be they would be so lucky. So Among all the disciples present, everybody has a different mindset. Some are very subjective, and they perceive Grandmaster in that way. But there are others with pure faith, and they think that if they're that fly, it would be so wonderful. So the two kinds of mindsets are different. When there is total reliance, that's a pure faith in the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. The other kind is a very subjective kind of perspective, which may result in misunderstandings, misinterpretations. So apart from reverence, which will give rise to pure faith, so that's why there's a sequence. You have to have first reverence, and then secondly, faith will arise. So there are three very important points in the practice of esoteric Dharma. Number one, faith in one's root guru. This faith in your root guru will generate a kind of power. So everyone has heard a story, a very famous story in Tibet, which is collecting honey to make an offering to Buddhas. So a cultivator passed by a tree one day and thought of gathering some honey to make an offering to the Buddhas, but he was afraid of being stung by the bees. So he went back to consult his guru, and his guru told him, "It's very easy. Just tell the bees not to sting you." So the cultivator climbed up the tree and told the bees, "I just want to collect some honey to make an offering to the Buddhas. Please don't sting me or bite me." And the bees did not sting him. And then his friend below saw the scene and asked him, "I saw you collecting honey just now. How come the bees didn't sting you?" So this cultivator told him, "I just told the bees not to sting me." And it was that simple, just that sentence. So his friend decided to learn from him and climbed up the tree to gather honey. And the moment he tried, the bees all stung him all over. So he was swollen all over. So this is a classic story in Tibet, which tells us a point, which is that a cultivator who consults his guru, this is the power of lineage. Whereas for his friend, he was just imitating, but he didn't have the power of lineage blessing. So the two are different. When we cultivate Tantric Buddhism, the faith in root guru, that kind of pure faith, that 100% faith in all of root guru's speech are a blessing. And this reverence, when you have reverence, another point is that it can help us to get rid of our ego or arrogance, which is an immense obstacle for spiritual cultivators. There are two kinds of pride, or one is 我慢, which is like ego or arrogance. The other kind, which is called 法慢, it means that you have learned cultivation for a long time. You might give rise to a feeling of pride arising from thinking that you have become very learned in the Dharma. So that is also a big obstacle for spiritual cultivators. So in the memoirs of eminent monks, there is such a story. There was a Zen master, Miao Gao, who had cultivated to a very good level. Especially, he had a good level of meditation, and he wanted to test his own spiritual practice. So he decided to sit on the edge of a cliff to meditate, and if he fell into a daze or became drowsy, he would fall off the cliff. So one time when he was meditating, he really became drowsy, and his whole person fell off the cliff. At that moment, he thought, okay, I'm doomed. But suddenly, wait, what? Skanda appeared and saved him. So Zen Master Miao thought to himself, hey, my cultivation is actually pretty good. Skanda actually came to save me and support me. So he felt that he was very proud of his cultivation. The moment that thought arose, Skanda glared at him and said that because of your arrogance, I will no longer support and protect you. And then Skanda disappeared. So Zen Master Miao gave rise to regret and remorse about that thought that he had, and he repented to Skanda, and subsequently he decided to sit on the edge of the cliff again to meditate, and he became drowsy and he fell off the cliff. So can you guess, everyone, whether Skanda saved him? So Skanda actually appeared and saved him. And Zen Master Miao, this time he was very humble, and apart from thanking the Dharma protector, he decided to ask him, the last time you said you would no longer protect me. Why did you save me this time? And Skanda told him, it's because you know how to repent. You have a heart of remorse, and so I will continue to support you in your practice. So this is a classic story that helps us to understand that for cultivators, before we attain accomplishment, we will often have shortcomings or moments of arrogance, or arrogance due to thinking that we're learned in the Dharma. But the most important is to have a remorseful heart. If you don't know how to repent, that's the worst. If able to give rise to a remorseful heart, the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas will still forgive us. So the story tells us that whatever shortcomings we have, we need to know how to seek forgiveness or repent for them. Number two, having faith in true Buddha Tantric Dharma. The power of Tantric Dharma is inconceivable, and there are many miracles in true Buddha school. Many miraculous events occur. So in book 225, authored by His Holiness Living Buddha LianYi, there is such an article about Dharma brother Qizhong. I believe a lot of people would know Dharma brother Qizhong. He has long hair. And one time Grandmaster actually asked him to come out on stage and sing a supplication prayer. So he's actually very famous. So his girlfriend's parents were traveling in China, and a serious car accident occurred. His girlfriend's mother was seriously injured, and the doctors believed that she could not be saved. So when he heard about this, he began to recite the Pama Kumara heart mantra for his girlfriend's mother for 3 days and 3 nights. And while reciting the mantra, he saw Grandmaster smiling at him and even radiating light from both hands to bless his girlfriend's mother. And as a result, a miracle happened. His girlfriend's mother came back to life and was revived. And the doctors at the hospital couldn't believe it. They thought it was incredible because they thought she was a goner. So there are a lot of times, sometimes the doctors might think one way, but miracles can happen. And if we encounter problems or disasters, we have to pray for Grandmaster's blessing. And sometimes you can also depend upon group power by asking for help from Dharma siblings to pray together. So eventually, like later, a special plane was sent from France to bring the girlfriend's mother back to France for medical treatment. And so this is an inconceivable event, a miracle that was documented by Grandmaster in his book. And next, this is about a Reverend LianYi, whom Master LianYi knows very well. She has a son who is a soldier in the US, and at the time he was just in his 20s. So being a soldier in the American Army is very dangerous. And as a mother, she was also very worried. So in addition to practicing Dharma and praying for Grandmaster's blessings every day, she also recited Grandmaster's heart mantra and visualized white light covering her son's entire body, like continuously emitting white light. One time he was sent to Afghanistan to perform a mission, and they encountered terrorists who started attacking and shooting. So the Reverend's son, a group of them, started running for their lives. But the Reverend's son accidentally fell to the ground, and he immediately got up and continued running. And when he came back to tell his mother, he said that he felt at that moment the bullets were like whizzing past him on both sides. It was like continuous stream of bullets, but amazingly, not a single bullet hit him, and he was able to escape death. So because I know the Reverend son, one time during Grandmaster's birthday, I think it was last year, during Grandmaster's birthday, he went to Rainbow Temple to attend the celebration and Dharma ceremony in conjunction with Grandmaster's birthday. And I saw on his hand, he was wearing a bracelet because right now he has stopped being a soldier at 30 years old. So he's wearing a bracelet with the names of all his colleagues in the troops who had passed away. So he felt that being a military man is so dangerous. So he has a very different perspective towards life. Towards many events in life, he can see past them regarding like status, well, he's not really attracted to them because he has experienced so many near-death episodes, life and death. When we encounter adversities in life, so it's actually not a bad thing because these are very valuable experiences in our lives. When we go through these very difficult situations, it will allow us to give rise to a faith in the Dharma and also help us to develop a mind of renunciation. So having these experiences is not necessarily bad. They're all meaningful in their own way. Okay, next. Number 3, having faith in oneself. Tantric Dharma highly regards self-power and other power because only when you have self-power will you receive the blessing of other power. A lot of people think that I can just depend on Grandmaster's blessing and receive his blessing. But actually, everybody has different levels of karmic hindrances and different levels of merit. So we all need to develop our own self-power to be able to receive other power. If we only depend on other power, how can we improve the efficiency of our cultivation? So when we actually put in the effort to develop our self-power, we will be able to, our cultivation will become more effective. So in Tantric Buddhism, you need to have faith in yourself, and this is very important. After cultivators take refuge, we all know that there is the fruition of Buddhahood, and then we start from the causal ground to begin our cultivation again and move towards that accomplishment of Buddhahood. So when we begin our cultivation in the causal ground, we need to combine our faith in Grandmaster, faith in True Buddha Tantric Dharma, and walk forward step by step, and everybody can become accomplished. I remember Grandmaster shared a word. He said that that's a very important word, and that word is, in Chinese, it's 直, which means direct or straight ahead or straight. So the meaning of that is when you have a clear goal, just walk straight ahead directly. If you do your best now, you will naturally succeed in the future. And everything else, you can just regard it as supporting conditions for your cultivation practice. And you will be able to overcome all your obstacles and hindrances. I felt that, so it means that having faith in the Grandmaster in our lineage is very important. Venerable or the venerated adept Atisha said, if you meet any obstacles and you have faith in your guru and you pray to him, just pray to your guru and all Mara, all demonic obstacles will vanish. So these 3 points are very important: having faith in our root guru, having faith in True Buddha Tantric Dharma, having faith in yourself. These 3 points are one, like are all connected. So that's my sharing with everyone. The second is to have, just now we talked about reverence, number 1, which would give rise to faith. And the second point is having compassion. And in the Dharma, there is a difference between loving kindness, 慈, and compassion, 悲. So loving kindness is not only wishing sentient beings to have happiness in this present moment, more importantly, it is to enable sentient beings to be replete in the causes that lead to happiness. So it's not just about giving sentient beings happiness. We need to think, especially Dharma propagators who are DA, DI, especially if you're a Dharma propagator, you need to have a mind of compassion at a cultivation venue. And then you'll be able to do or accomplish some things that will truly benefit sentient beings. Because at cultivation venues, it is inevitable that there will be people politics or issues. But apart from wanting to arrive at accomplishment in your own spiritual cultivation, you need to think about other people who similarly also want to arrive at accomplishment. So apart from thinking about yourself and your own happiness and bliss, you need to think about other people who want the same thing. So you need to think about how can we lead them to have the causes for happiness. We need to be able to tolerate each other, embrace each other, and support each other, and then the cultivation venues will be able to overcome the people politics or problems that they face. The next part of um, this Chinese term, bei, which means karuna or sympathetic compassion. It's not just about wishing sentient beings to be free from temporary suffering, but more importantly, it is to help them to stay far away from and put a stop to the causes leading to suffering. We need to help them to stop planting the seeds that will lead to the fruit of suffering. So as Dharma propagators at your respective cultivation venues, for example, I know this Dharma sibling, fellow disciple in Hong Kong, and he or she brought a lot of money, 2,000,000. So I think that's 20 million. But that was during the economic recession. She brought it to Canada for investment, and she lost a lot of money. So as you can imagine, she was very distraught. But what she was most upset about, or was her really good friend in the past, whenever that friend saw him or her, they turned away when she was facing this difficulty. So when this person was rich, that friend was very happy to see that person, but then when the person is facing this problem, the friend like avoids him or her. So during that very down state, this disciple met someone who invited him or her to the cultivation venue, and he or she felt very encouraged by all the support that the Dharma siblings at this cultivation venue were giving her. They knew about his or her problem with losing all that investment money, and they were really encouraging. So this disciple really felt very encouraged and loved and cared for by the people at the cultivation venue, which helped him or her to develop faith and want to take refuge. And now he or she is no longer able to earn all that money again. But after learning Dharma, the person has undergone a tremendous transformation and become a lot more happy. So as a Dharma propagator, you need to have compassion. Apart from wishing them happiness, you need to wish that they can depart from suffering. So this is a true story, and I really feel that we need to give rise to a heart of compassion and help those who need help. I feel this is the true value of learning the Dharma. Often between people, there are conflicts or friction, and this is inevitable. But if you truly learn compassion, look at the terms or the story. Compassion has no enemies. What is it talking about? This is actually talking about Devadatta, the Buddha's cousin. So Devadatta was sick one time, and even after going to the doctor, taking medicine, he was still unwell. So the Buddha went to visit him, and at that time, the Buddha's disciples protested, Buddha, you shouldn't go and visit Devadatta because he has tried on several occasions to harm you, and he even wanted to kill you. So you shouldn't go. We can go and visit him instead. So the Buddha told his disciples, I have a compassionate heart that arises from equanimity. So I won't treat people better because they are good to me, or treat people worse because they are bad to me. So he went to visit Devadatta. And when he arrived there, he told his disciples, if I visit Devadatta and my heart is and I have a mind of equanimity without differentiation, then Devadatta will recover from his illness. And after visiting him, uh, Devadatta recovered from his sickness. And the Buddha told his disciples, compassion has no enemies. So this sentence helps us to understand that when we have compassion, when you truly have loving kindness and sympathetic compassion, you will be able to treat people with an equal mind, a mind of equanimity, and you wouldn't want to harm or retaliate against people who treat you badly, and vice versa. So if we can all truly have loving kindness and sympathetic compassion, then in Tribhuda school, across all the different cultivation venues, and all the people problems can diminish to its lowest level, and Tribhuda Tantric Dharma would truly be able to flourish and outreach to people outside. So loving kindness and sympathetic compassion are very important. The next point is about bodhicitta. And bodhicitta is the resolve to attain the fruition of Buddhahood above and to deliver sentient beings below. With Buddhahood as your goal, help all sentient beings to walk toward liberation. In the cultivation of Tantric Dharma, why must we give rise to bodhicitta? Because, as mentioned earlier, resolve to attain fruition of Buddhahood above, deliver sentient beings below. When we give rise to bodhicitta, we want to attain accomplishment. So there's this story, a cultivator in the mountains. He was in retreat for 3 years, and one day he thought, I want to give rise to bodhicitta. I want to do things that can benefit sentient beings. So he thought at that time there were some elderly people who would climb from the bottom of the mountain to the top to pray to the Buddhas. So he thought that maybe he could help the elderly who had difficulty walking and carry them from the bottom of the mountain to the top so that they could pay homage to the Buddhas. One day, this cultivator carried an old woman, and halfway, it was really hot weather. The old woman asked, cultivator, what is your name? And the cultivator replied, my name is Leng Hui. Why are you called Leng Hui? Because when I took refuge, my teacher gave me this name, Leng Hui, which means cold ash, because I had a bad temper. So my teacher wanted me to be able to transform my temper, keep a calm, cool mind, heart. And after walking a little further, the old woman asked again, what is your name? And then he repeated the same answer. So the old woman kept asking him the same question. And this cultivator kept repeating the same answer until finally he blew up. Like, you keep asking me the same question. It's very hard to carry you. And then the old woman vanished and turned into Avalokiteshvara, or Guanyin in the sky, who told him, Leng Hui Xing Hui Long means cold ash, but heart not cold or cool. So you have to cultivate for another 20 years. So when we cultivate and give rise to bodhicitta, we need to remember that it's not just for our own sake, but it's also for the sake of sentient beings to help them become liberated. So whenever you encounter situations, whatever situation you encounter, remember that it's all to help us to become accomplished. Some disciples, some fellow disciples or Dharma siblings tell me it's really very difficult to patiently endure some people. It's really torturous and torment to endure people who treat us badly. So Mussolini told them, don't perceive them as what they seem like and imagine them to be like Avalokiteshvaras, like the story just now. When you think that every single person is like an Avalokiteshvara who's here to help you in your cultivation, then you wouldn't be angry with them. So whenever you think that they are Avalokiteshvaras coming to help you in your practice, then you'll be able to cool off very easily. Or even if you get irritated or upset, you will be able to calm down faster. So then look at the saying from Milarepa. What did he say? He said, before becoming enlightened, I thought that I was delivering sentient beings. But after enlightenment, I realized that sentient beings were delivering me. Every time I carried out good deeds, I thought I was helping others, until later on, I realized that other people were helping me. This is what Milarepa, a venerated adept, very accomplished cultivator, said. So what is he telling us? Before enlightenment, he thought that he was delivering or teaching sentient beings. But after he became enlightened, he realized it was the other way around. Why did he reverse? This is bodhicitta. When you have bodhicitta, you realize that sentient beings are here to help you become accomplished. They are your supporting conditions in cultivation. Without sentient beings, you would not be able to give rise to bodhicitta, and you would just be cultivating yourself. And in Tantric Buddhism, it's necessary to give rise to bodhicitta. So because there is such an affinity, that external circumstance that will allow you to cultivate, enable you to cultivate. When you see a beggar, for instance, you think that you have pity for him and you decide to give him some money, then that's your compassion arising. But some people have another belief. They kind of like toss the money at the beggar. The beggar's just here to take some money from them, and it's a very bad. So it's not really a true compassionate kind of giving, but so there are these different forms of giving. So some truly give out of compassion. They hope that the beggar will have a better life. But actually, the beggar is also helping you to become accomplished by giving you a cause to give rise to compassion. So I feel that this saying or teaching from Milarepa is really good. But it's actually the sentient beings who are really helping you and to become accomplished in your practice. And your bodhicitta will become more and more firm and resolute. Another saying by Milarepa is that forgive those who have harmed you because they have risked the consequence of going to hell, descending to hell, in order to help you arrive at accomplishment. Even if the wrong belongs to others, the karmic hindrance belongs to one itself. So even for those who have harmed us, we need to wish them well, because bodhicitta is about no longer wanting to develop any knots of enmity with anyone. And when you encounter adversities or negative situations, you have to understand that cultivation is about wanting to become liberated. To become liberated, you must stop, no longer have any more knots, negative affinities, knots of enmity. If you hold a kind of heart of retaliation, if other people do wrong to you, you want to retaliate and seek revenge, then although people have wrong, they have to bear the result of their own karma. But as for you as a cultivator, if you continue this vicious cycle, and take revenge, then the karmic hindrance belongs to yourself. So that's why Milarepa says that even if the wrong belongs to others, the karmic hindrance will belong to ourselves. So if we can't go past that point, then it's always like running on the spot. So this sentence has a great power. The sentence by Milarepa. The next point. The fourth point, the fourth mindset to have is humility. Humility is an expression of inner harmony and a vast open heart or mind. It's a beautiful virtue so humility is a kind of a cultivator's mindset. Okay. Mussolini is making a distinction between 谦卑 and 谦虚. 谦虚 is an outward expression, and 谦卑 is an inner expression, an inner humility. So there's a slight difference between the two. And there's a story. Everybody knows about America's forefather, Benjamin Franklin, who, when he was young, he was very learned and very intelligent. And one time, he visited a senior, an elder, and he swaggered as he walked. And you know that like people in the West, they're all very big, and Benjamin Franklin was very tall. And as he swaggered through the doorway, his head hit the door frame. It was very painful. So he kept rubbing his head as he squatted on the ground, and the elder walked out from the house and saw the situation. So he smiled and told Franklin, "It's very painful, isn't it? But it's a very important lesson that you have just learned today. When it's time to lower your head, you need to lower your head." So Benjamin Franklin remembered this lesson. It became imprinted in his heart. He realized the importance of respect. So if you want other people to respect you, you have to first know how to respect other people. So he can become the forefather of America. It's because they have like these outstanding characteristics. So when it's time to lower your head, learn to lower your head. So during the course of our cultivation, it's the same principle. We need to be humble and lower ourselves so that we can see our own shortcomings and be able to absorb the wisdom and experience of other people. And this is a very superb saying. It's like the saying that when wheat or barley is becoming ripe, it will start to bend. So that's an analogy for humility. We need to be able to learn from other people's strengths, and no matter how smart or skillful you are, we still have our shortcomings. So it's necessary to lower ourselves to learn from other people. Next, here's another story about an artist. I also like the story very much. So this artist was very patient. He patiently helped everybody who looked to him for help. So his student said, "Teacher, you're now so famous. There's no need to work so hard to spend so much time to teach everyone." And after hearing this, the teacher told his students, when I was learning painting in my youth, I once went to visit a famous painter or artist, but that painter didn't even look at me. And do you know, at the time I was so sad. Before I left, I told the painter, although you're now standing on a high mountain looking down and feel that I'm very small, similarly, when I look at you from the foot of the mountain, you also seem very small. So what is this story telling us? I'm sure all of you know how you look at other people. People look at you the same way. It's just like what I said just now. When we learn to respect other people, people will naturally respect us. It's a very simple principle. And so in our spiritual cultivation, we must never look down on other people. It's a very important concept that we must learn from other people's strengths. Let's continue regarding methods of learning Buddhism. Learning Buddhism should be based on the foundation of listening, thinking, and practicing. You must first listen to the Dharma and understand its principles. Then you need to think about these principles. For example, the Buddha taught about suffering, emptiness, impermanence, and non-self. Why are these truths of the universe? The first point of learning Buddhism is that we must first often read sutras, read the Vajra Sutra. Grandmaster has expounded on the Heart Sutra, or the Great Rainbow Light, or a complete and detailed exposition on the Buddha Dharma. So Grandmaster has written so many books. All of them are very precious. The content is so rich. So when we learn the Dharma, first of all, we have to read Grandmaster's books more, listen to his discourses more. And the more we listen and then think about them, contemplate their meaning, it's just like what I said just now. Why did Milarepa say, before enlightenment, I thought I was delivering sentient beings, but when I became enlightened, I realized that sentient beings were delivering me. For normal people, when you hear this sentence, what would you think? Why do you say it in a reverse manner? Wouldn't you have doubt? So when you think about it, you need to think about the sentence. When you hear it, you have to think about the sentence. Contemplate its meaning. Why did such a venerated adept say this? And then finally, we need to cultivate. We have to cultivate your own wisdom so that you can fully understand what is the meaning of the teachings. Why are they teaching us these principles? So first, we have to listen. The more you listen to the Dharma, and then secondly, you have to think about the Dharma, like contemplate their meaning. And for example, suffering, emptiness, impermanence, non-self, or the 8 kinds of suffering. The sufferings of birth, aging, sickness, and death, not getting what we want, being apart from what we love, being with people that we don't like. There's no need for further explanation. You can definitely understand these So, and also the suffering of the flourishing of the five aggregates, the form, feeling, perception, mental formations, and consciousness, which lead to inner experience. The principle of emptiness, all worldly phenomena are ultimately empty. So, Grandmaster has often used the teachings from the Heart Sutra. He often says, the concept of 无所得, which means nothing can be attained. So there was a disciple who tried to hit the bullseye to arrive at enlightenment, and he often wrote letters to ask for validation of his enlightenment or his understanding. And Grandmaster, at one time, he missed many times, and he knelt down in front of Buddha, and he begged Grandmaster to teach him. And Grandmaster said, think about 无所得, these three words, nothing to be gained. So there's another analogy about 水中月, which means moon in the water, or 镜中花, it means flower in the mirror. So these are all analogies about the characteristic of nothing to be gained. And when you think about it, when we engage in spiritual cultivation, the ultimate meaning is that we can liberate ourselves from the cycle of life and death. What did Master Tsongkhapa tell us about the meaning of cultivation? One, samsara is suffering. Third is karma. Life is impermanent, karma, and also the sufferings of samsara. So these are reasons why we cultivate. When you continuously contemplate these teachings, you will give rise to heart of learning Dharma. What is impermanence? Okay, there's a story about this princess, Ma Ba Mo, who was very beautiful. And many officials or aristocrats wanted to court her, and her parents loved her very much. So at that time, as you can imagine, she was very happy and she felt the world was beautiful. But when she was 16, she developed a skin disease, and she had all these like polyps or growths on her whole body. So you can imagine a very beautiful young maiden suddenly with all these protrusions on her body, like bubbles on her skin. How she became disfigured by the skin disease, and all the people courting her turned away, and her parents stopped loving her, and so she fell into great sorrow. She great suffering, and she hid in the mountains. And whenever she was thirsty, she would drink from the streams. When she was hungry, she would pluck fruit. She would gather fruit. And in the mountain, she would pray to Avalokiteshvara. So this is also a classic story. She actually started to prostrate to Avalokiteshvara in the emptiness in the sky for 12 years. And after 12 years, the skin disease healed. And she even became even more beautiful, more captivating. And she returned to the palace. And And a lot of people, the ministers or officials or the aristocrats, saw how beautiful she had become once more, and they tried to court her. But this princess, she was no longer moved by all these. She understood the meaning of impermanence, non-self, and eventually she became a nun. And she used the methods of the thousand arm, thousand eyed, Avalokiteshvara to save sentient beings. So this story tells us, in the beginning, it was a kind of small love, the attitude of small love, like personal, but it transformed into transcendental love, which is the love for all sentient beings and hoping that all sentient beings can become liberated. So doing the great homage, the prostrations can not only get rid of karmic hindrance, but also increase wisdom. So what is impermanence? Nothing's fixed. You never know when something will happen. And what is non-self? There is no real self, and all of us are composed of the elements of earth, water, fire, and wind. A combination of the conditions gathering together. Imagine if we don't have body temperature, will we still survive? So it's just the gathering of these conditions. So people, human beings, we are, it's non-self, no self. Among my own personal experiences, I've realized that many young people have passed away. Tomorrow, I will be going to do funeral chanting or recitation for someone who's only 30 years old. This person, during his or her work, they were cutting a tree and the branch hit him coincidentally, and he fell into coma in the hospital. But within a few days, in the ICU, he could not be saved and he died. He was only 30 years old. Can you imagine? Life is truly impermanent. So at the Tantric Buddhist Society, also a strong and healthy young person, 30 years old, Dharma Brother Wu, he was just bathing, but he slipped and fell, he hit his head, and then he suddenly died. Another Dharma Brother, I'm not trying to say anything, I just want to share with people about this principle of impermanence. So this Dharma Brother Lai from Ipoh, and I also helped him to do funeral chanting not too long ago. So he worked at the company with his wife, and he told his wife, let me go back home first, and you can follow behind in your car. So the husband drove first, and he reached home first. 10 minutes later, the wife entered the house, and she saw her husband collapse on the floor, and he had died from a heart attack, just 10 minutes apart. So these phenomena help us to understand the concept of impermanence. So we need to give rise to a mind of renunciation. The next part about Syo or cultivation practice, it's referring to the actual practice of Dharma, the development of wisdom. With wisdom, you can transcend all troubles, afflictions, because the root of all troubles and afflictions is self-grasping. Okay, next. Why do people have to learn wisdom or develop our wisdom? Because this wisdom will help us to understand some principles. And when we encounter adversities or difficult situations, it can help us to face these well. So what is the philosophy of shadows? This person wanted to transcend or his shadow or get away from his shadow. And no matter how far he ran, he couldn't get away from his own shadow. So the wise person told him, you'll never be able to get past your own shadow if you keep running this way. But if you just face the sun, the shadow will be behind you. So this one sentence was able to help him to reach understanding. What does the shadow represent? It represents our problems, it represents our obstacles. And if we don't have the wisdom of the Dharma, we will not be able to overcome our shadow or like be ahead of our shadow, because we are just using our subjective understanding, our perspectives towards human life and try to solve our problems, which is really difficult. But when you face the sun, what does that represent? It represents light, it represents wisdom. That sunlight, our troubles are shadows. To overcome our troubles and afflictions, we need to have light pouring over us. And when that light shines upon us, that the shadows will disappear. So it's like a house. If you never turn on the light, it's all dark. But just turn on the switch and the whole house or the whole room will become bright. So what does that represent? Wisdom is about being able to transform our negative thoughts to good thoughts. The way we perceive things from a different perspective, you'll not be trapped in negative thoughts or emotions, but you can actually, or like a downward spiral, but you can overcome or transcend those very quickly. So it's very important to have the wisdom of the Dharma. Okay, due to time constraints, so the story about Zen Master Mingyun who likes to grow orchids. A lot of these stories, actually, when I was teaching the Troubadour School Online Universities class, I've actually mentioned a lot of these. So you can treat this, as we often say, a kind of revision of these stories. So if you have never heard of these stories, then you can listen. And if you have heard these stories before, hopefully you have a deeper understanding of these stories. So Zen Master Mingyun liked to grow orchids. And why did he like to do so? Because he felt that the orchids could beautify the temple and help him to cultivate his mind. So one time he needed to go down the mountain to run an errand, and he told his disciple, a little monk, novice monk, you need to take good care of my orchids and wait for me to return. And the little novice monk, when he was tidying in the room, he accidentally knocked the orchid over, and he was very afraid that his teacher would be very angry with him. And soon after, his teacher returned and knew about this happening. Not only did the teacher not get angry, but he told the disciple, I grow orchids not because I'm angry, but because they can beautify the surroundings and also help me to cultivate my mind. So it's a good reminder when we carry out Bodhi endeavors, like these Buddhist endeavors, what is our true resolve or purpose? So when you listen to this, you can understand the reason why Zen Master Mingyun likes to grow orchids. The real meaning is to cultivate his mind. So when we help out at a cultivation venue, is it because we want to accumulate our merits to develop good affinities? Or is it because of some minor, trivial, petty concerns? So it's important to keep our focus on the right things. It wouldn't be very logical if we are like get trapped in these trivial matters, petty affairs. So learning Dharma is about wanting to become liberated one day. So Master Mingyun told his monk disciple that what is even more important, like even though I like orchids, it's necessary to be able to transcend that material aspect. You have to be able to let go of attachments, think that even if you have a very big house, it's just temporary. Even if you're very beautiful, it's just temporary. Even if you have a lot of money, you have big cars, no matter how much you have, even if you're a wealthy magnate, you can't bring a single cent with you when you pass on. And instead, maybe your descendants might be fighting over your wealth. It's not saying that money is not important. Like right now, I need to build a temple and fundraise for the temple. This is a digression. After the pandemic, all the prices have gone up, the cost of construction materials. Okay, enough of that digression. Grandmaster has said in a discourse, true Buddha Tantric Dharma is a kind of antidotal expedient means. When discursive thoughts occur, use right mindfulness or wholesome thoughts to remedy them. Visualize your Idam deity, recite your Idam deity's mantra, use right mindfulness or wholesome thoughts to remedy these discursive thoughts. So some disciples will say, I've learned Dharma for so long. How come? But whenever I encounter something, I still have these bad thoughts that arise so quickly. And I still have so many discursive thoughts, scattered thoughts. So as I mentioned, you need to visualize your Idam deity or guru above the top of your head. And this is an antidotal method to remedy the situation. So gradually you will realize that your discursive thoughts will gradually reduce. And it's also very important to often meditate and be in samadhi, especially lay practitioners. Outside of the house, when you go out, you encounter a lot of situations, you have a lot of discursive thoughts, and you need to have quiet time to let all these discursive thoughts settle down so that your wisdom can gradually increase. So is cultivation good? You will find that the longer you cultivate, your perspective towards life will change, your heart will expand, your mind will expand, and these are improvements in your spiritual cultivation. So Grandmaster has often said, how do we assess the level of our spiritual cultivation? Just look at the width of your heart, the expanse of your heart. If it's getting bigger, then it means that you're improving. But if you're often entangled by a lot of negative thoughts, then you have to realize that maybe you're just cultivating Dharma, practicing Dharma, but you haven't really addressed the cultivation of the mind, of your own mind. So this method is a way to remedy as an antidote to discursive thoughts. Okay, next. There's a very important thing. Before becoming a Buddha, you must first develop good affinities with people. The establishment of a cultivation venue should be people-oriented, and when there are people, there will naturally be resources. Talents and Dharma wealth will come naturally, so it's very important to form good affinities or kind relationships with many people. So what we said earlier about listening, thinking, and practicing, once you have learned, thought about it, and you have you then practice it. So if you offend someone, that person will not come to help you. And then you have a reduction in Dharma wealth, you have a reduction in talent. So we often have to keep in mind to form good affinities, kind relationships with people. One time, Buddha, sorry, not Shariputra, Ananda. The Buddha asked Ananda to go to a village next door to fetch a bucket of water for everybody. and be kind to everyone. So Ananda brought a bucket with him and went to the village and asked for water from the old woman. I would like to gather water from the well. Is that okay? And then the old woman said, no, it's not possible because the water in this well is only for this village. And Ananda went back. He was very crestfallen. Uh, he tried to negotiate with the old woman and tried to plead and beg for a pail of water, a bucket of water, but the old woman refused, and he went back very crestfallen with an empty bucket. And when the Buddha heard this, he told Shariputra, Shariputra, go to that village, go to the same place, talk to that same old lady, and bring back a bucket of water. And so Shariputra went to that old woman's home and said that she wanted to take a pail of water. And the old woman said, no problem. And he basically took a bucket of water from, gathered a bucket of water from the well. And when Shariputra was about to leave, the old woman even told Shariputra, I have some desserts in the house. You can bring it back for everyone. So Shariputra went back with a full load. He had water, bucket of water, and he had like food. And so when Ananda saw this, he was very unhappy and he asked the Buddha. So the Buddha told him that apart from cultivation, accomplishment in his past life, Shariputra loved helping people. So he established a lot of good affinities, kind relation, so that's why the old woman in this lifetime was kind to him. So here we realize the importance of developing kind affinities with everyone. When you do that and you need help from other people, they will help you. They will appear and help you. So this is a very important lesson and story. Okay, this is also a very good story. It happened in America. Um, there was a meat processing factory, and there's a female worker who needed to go inside the freezer to check the meat. One day, she went inside the freezer compartment of the factory, and suddenly the door became locked. And at that point, no matter how loudly she cried, um, there was nobody who could help her because everybody had knocked off. They had gone off. And then about an hour, the security guard suddenly opened the door and was able to save the female worker. And at that point, she was really very, very cold. And she was very thankful to the security guard. And she asked the security guard, this is not part of your daily duties. Usually you're just outside at your guard post. Why did you come in and save me? And the security guard told her, I've been at this factory for 20 over years, and every day in the morning, you would always say good morning. You would greet me. And when you go off, you would always say goodbye. But on that day, that particular day, I saw you in the morning and you greeted me good morning, but when it was time to knock off, I didn't see you. I didn't see you saying goodbye to me. So I thought that maybe something had happened. So I started looking for you everywhere. And finally, this is the only place I hadn't checked. So when I opened the door of the freezer compartment, there you were. So the reason I'm telling this story is that on the surface, sometimes there are things that seem utterly insignificant. Just a single sentence, a greeting of good morning, a greeting of goodbye. This actually saved the life of that female worker. So when we're polite to other people, or like we say, greet other people with Amitabha, it's a way to establish good affinity. And at the very least, you have not, don't establish negative affinities. And the next point, Venerable monk Liaoming said there are two things a spiritual cultivator must do. Number one, accumulate our own virtue merits. And number two, purify our own karmic hindrances. So this was mentioned by Venerable monk Liaoming. So accumulating virtue merits is to practice the path of accumulation so that in this life we can receive our merit blessings such as food, clothing, shelter, transportation, resources, Dharma friends, Dharma, place for cultivation. In order to practice Tantric Dharma, we need to be successful in worldly conditions. Like for instance, if you see a beautiful Buddha statue and you don't have sufficient money to buy it, then it means that you have insufficient merit blessing. It means that you need to engage more in helping at the cultivation venues and helping with the propagation of Dharma. In the transcendental aspect, to obtain the wisdom of the Dharma and possess right knowledge and views so that we can get rid of our worries and afflictions. So these two sentences are basically can be summarized in 2 points. First is to accumulate virtue merit, and secondly is to destroy, clear our obstacles so that we can develop wisdom in our spiritual practice, and you wouldn't be easily swayed by what other people say. You can have your own wisdom to discern things. Purification of our own karmic hindrances. There's a saying that goes, if your karmic hindrances are not deep, you will not be born in this Saha world. And when we come into this world, we all bring karma with us. We're here to pay off our karmic debts. So every day we need to cultivate so that we can clear our karmic hindrances. A Tibetan Dharma king taught his disciples 5 minutes before going to bed every day. Reflect upon whether they did anything wrong during that day. And if you realize that you have made a mistake, then immediately recite a 100-syllable mantra to repent for and transform the error or fault. And karmic hindrances are accumulated gradually, just like dust on a table. If you don't wipe it away, every day it will accumulate, it will gather. So that table is an analogy for our heart mind. If you don't wipe the table today, tomorrow the dust will increase. If you don't cultivate, practice Dharma, the dust will gather. For lay practitioners, you can practice just once a day. And if you practice once a day, there's meaning. Today has been meaningful. Just by cultivating once a day, you can start to purify your karmic hindrances. You can also spend a few minutes a day to think, reflect upon what you've done this day. This is also a true story about a Dharma brother who this happened in the early days. He saw that he learned that all the things used by a grandmaster have blessing power. So one time he secretly took a cup the grandmaster had used and he put the cup in his shrine at home. And from that very day, not only did it not have any blessing power, he had stolen the cup. He felt tremendously guilty. He felt he shouldn't have done that. But he felt embarrassed, like he couldn't admit to his crime. So after a year of unhappiness, he finally gathered his courage and bought 6 new exquisite cups and plucked up his courage to confess to Grandmaster and give the cups to Grandmaster. So Grandmaster patted him and said, "It's okay." And after that, the guilt in his heart was lifted, and he became at ease. So repentance is also very important, especially toward our own root guru. If you've committed a really grave mistake, then you need to confess and repent to your own root guru, or at the very least, your own shrine, your altar. Confess your wrongdoing, your mistake. So I'd like to share this with everyone. Finally, here are 3 methods of learning. So these 3 methods have been described by the 17th century philosopher Bacon, which I think apply to the learning of Dharma. So the first is ant style, which refers to being like ants who only know how to collect and hoard food, but don't know how to be flexible. And there are many there are many fellow disciples who have learned Buddhism for a long time and also understand many principles. Like now, there are so many Dharma classroom classes. There's so many classes by the education department. Yesterday, there were classes, the life etiquette classes. So there's so much Buddha Dhamma to know, so much knowledge. But have you just been absorbing but not know how to apply the teachings? So this method is about just absorbing or learning all these things, but they're not really applying the teachings. And so there are many disciples who have practiced or learned Dharma for a long time, and they understand many principles, but you'll find that their words and deeds have not changed much. So they have a bad temper, narrow, small-minded. They like to quarrel over trivial matters, are trapped in duality, or very discriminating mind. So it means that they are not able to let go of a lot of things. They haven't changed much. So that's practicing Dharma but not cultivating the mind. The second method is spider style, which refers to drawing boundaries to weave one's own web of knowledge and using one's own subjective perspective to judge people and things. This is an analogy for being self-centered, with heavy self-grasping, strong ego. This web is the person's world, and it represents the self is at the center of your own universe. You're using your subjective mind to judge people and things. And such people will tend to have heavy self-grasping, strong ego, tend to be very narrow-minded. And so it's also not the most ideal style of learning. The third kind of learning method is bee style, which refers to being like bees who can collect food by flying to further places and transform what they have gathered into honey. This kind of learning, it's like listening to a lot of Dharma, hearing the principles, and you're gathering them, and then you transform them into a kind of nourishment, your own wisdom, and you're able to use these in your daily life. And this is the best style of learning, the best method of learning. So after learning, we have to apply what we've learned. We have to apply the Dharma in our daily lives. In our daily lives, we will encounter a lot of situations, various people, various situations, the relationships between people, interaction in our families, at home, at work. So we really need to use the wisdom of the Dharma to help us. And so this Here's a saying that I find very meaningful. Cultivation is like the moon on the first day of the lunar month. At the beginning, there are many shortcomings and it's very dim. But as long as you keep working hard, it'll become brighter and brighter. And like the moon on the 15th day, it will become more and more complete. So at the beginning, everyone's the same. We're all equal. It really depends on how you use your time to cultivate, how you cultivate, how you do your own homework. And it's like at the beginning, the moon is like a crescent. It's not a full moon, right? And the more you practice, it will grow rounder, become more complete, it'll become brighter. And the moon on the 15th day is perfect, perfectly round. And finally, here are some words of encouragement from Tagore to everyone. So he said something like, live like a beam of light because you will never know who will rely upon your illumination to emerge from the darkness. So our cultivation every day is to allow us to develop a positive energy so that we can become brighter and brighter. It's really this principle of living like a beam of light because you never know who will need your brightness to emerge from the darkness. And as a Dharma propagator, um, you have to be prepared so that you can help sentient beings at any time, at any place. When they encounter difficulties, they will be able to emerge from the darkness. So the sentence below, it's my own insight. I feel that each of us can live like a light. When you speak kind words, when interacting with other people at your cultivation venue, it's actually equivalent to your mouth emitting light. And when you help someone, it's really equivalent to your hands emitting light. When you cultivate and you become kind and compassionate, it's equivalent to your heart emitting light. So every day we pray to the Buddhas, Bodhisattvas to bless us with their light. Actually, if you understand these principles, every day each of us can emit light. Just say a sentence of kindness, help people to be joyful, help someone. So saying kind words is equivalent to your mouth emitting light. When you help people to solve their difficulty, it's like your hands emitting light. And when you're kind and compassionate, isn't that your heart emitting light, radiating light? So may each of us live like a beam of light and blossom with all that is good and beautiful. Okay, so my apologies, it's 1.5 hours to here. I would like to wish everyone well, be healthy, and be replete in blessings and wisdom. Om Mani Padme Hum. Thank you, Master LianYi, for your exciting class. Such meaningful stories. We hope that everyone, after absorbing such nutritious information, can transform our hearts, turn it into wisdom that we can apply in our daily lives so that we can emit light all over. Thank you, Master LianYi. And now, due to time constraints, there will not be a question and answer session. I just saw the chat just now and people, there were not many questions as well. So let's introduce the next class, which will also happen at Taiwan time, 8 p.m. And the class topic would be an introduction to learning Buddhism, why I believe in Buddhism and True Buddha School, what is karmic cause and effect, and what is the reception of visitors, what is a model true Buddha practitioner, and it would also include some essential information for TBS disciples, DI and DA, and Master Shi Lian Tai would be the teacher. So please be punctual for the class. And before the end of the class, let's take a group photo. Quick reminder about the submission of assignments. If you're a candidate, a prospective candidate, you have to log into the Dhama Classroom online class management system and the assignment management section to submit your homework. And if you're a prospective candidate, you have to quickly submit the assignment on the 5th chapter. If you submit your homework late, you will not get the respective points. So you have to submit your homework on time. And because the management system is undergoing overhaul or has been overhauled, so you need to submit the assignments in the Dharma Classroom online system management. In the assignment management column in that section, you have to resubmit your homework. If you have submitted your homework before, resubmit the homework that you submitted before, the reflections or the insights that you wrote, your learning insights. For each chapter of the course, you just need to submit one insight for each chapter. You don't have to do it for each lesson, just each chapter. And if you are for the Etiquette of Life class in the Dharma Classroom system, you need to submit 6 assignments. If you are becoming a DI, but for DA, you have to submit an assignment within 15 days after the class, your learning insight. And again, if you're late, you will not receive the relevant points or the corresponding marks. So thank you, everyone. Finally, let's thank Master LianYi and thank DI Mei for Indonesian interpretation. Thank everyone, all the backend support, Dharma Classroom.